Hi friends, Adam Kirtley here, Chaplain at Whitman. I hope this message finds you well. This week I found myself, against my better judgment, embroiled in a bit of a social media conflict. I grew up in rural central Indiana, and the people from my life, from that time in my life, I hold dear. I have a lot of affection and gratitude for those relationships and those individuals, of people who cared for me and loved me and shaped me. And I can hold all that true while also acknowledging that where I now stand politically and socially and in many ways is very different from where they would place themselves. And this week, a high school classmate of mine posted a news article on his Facebook feed, and it created a tremendous amount of outrage among my peers, and people were sharing it and posting their dismay, and the comments were vitriolic, and I could understand the level of their anger, and I looked up the article and immediately found that it had been widely debunked as a satirical article that had no basis in truth whatsoever. And so I shared that on the Facebook post, and then I became the target of their anger. And for the next day or so, I really carried that around with me and went back several times to look at who was saying what about me. As I was sort of navigating that, of course, I wasn't simply feeling victimized. I was angry too, and I was feeling incredibly frustrated with these folks, and asking myself even how I could carry any level of affection for people who can say and do these things. In that process, I was reminded of a childhood story, a storybook that we used to read our two daughters when they were younger. It's called Zen Shorts by John Muth, and it is a beautifully illustrated book that gives some incredibly poignant lessons, Buddhist and sort of Zen proverbs written in the form of a children's storybook. And one of the girls' favorite story from that book is also one that I have carried with me and referenced throughout my life, for the last several years anyway. And it's very brief, and I'm gonna read it to you now. It's called A Heavy Load and there are incidentally multiple versions of this story, and again, this is the rendering from John Muth in the book Zen Shorts. Two traveling monks reached a town where there was a woman waiting to step out of her sedan chair. The rains had made deep puddles, and she couldn't step across them without spoiling her silken robes. She stood there looking very cross and impatient. She was scolding her attendants. They had nowhere to place the packages they held for her, so they couldn't help her across the puddles. The younger monk noticed the woman, said nothing, and walked by. The older monk quickly picked her up and put her on his back, transported her across the water, and put her down on the other side. She didn't thank the older monk. She just shoved him out of the way and departed. As they continued on their way, the young monk was brooding and preoccupied. After several hours, unable to hold his silence, he spoke out. That woman back there was very selfish and rude. You put her on your back and carried her. Then she didn't even thank you. I set the woman down hours ago, the older monk replied. Why are you still carrying her? I think the deeper truth in this story is not simply about the importance of forgiveness, but I think it also sort of gets to the point that at some level this forgiveness is a conscious choice that we make. It is understandable to encounter feelings of anger and frustration. There may be a sense in which you are feeling as a student or a staff or faculty member at Whitman that in, the amount of work and compromise that you're having to make in your life isn't commensurate with others that you have in your circle, and that breeds a level of resentment and frustration. And I think that that is all understandable. It's a perfectly natural response to those realities, and that we are invited into the discipline of letting it go, invited into the discipline of not leaning into those feelings of frustration, acknowledging them, but maybe taking the opportunity to lean away from them if they're taking up too much of our lives, and we're feeling that the lens through which we are viewing our world is one of anger or sadness or fear. All of those, again, are understandable, natural responses to the situations that we're in, both in response to COVID and politically. But how we respond to them is an area that we might have a little bit of control. So that's my invitation to you all this week, my friends. Just in the last 4 minutes since we've been chatting, the sun has moved out of this shade and onto my face, and it may make for a less compelling video, but it feels wonderful. So I'm going to sit here and claim it, and I hope that you find moments to do the same. So until we see each other next, take care of yourselves and each other, and I look forward to seeing you around soon. Take care.